at the U of O. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's start with the optics here. They kind of stink because it was just a month ago. Yeah, don't worry, whatever you want to do. Now suddenly they're making that solid recommendation. First, are you surprised?
I'm not surprised. This was the recommendation by many scientists weeks ago, and frankly, we expected this to be the outcome of the mix and match clinical trials months ago. But I am also sympathetic to the people who got AstraZeneca as both their doses. They lined up, did the dutiful thing. They did what people told them to do, and now they're being shortchanged a bit. You know, we see situations like the Bruce Springsteen concert in the USA saying they won't accept AstraZeneca as proof of vaccination, right? So people are being punished a bit. Now, they shouldn't feel like they got shortchanged because they got protection, good protection, earlier than a lot of other people. So who knows what could have happened if they had waited? That's the first thing. Second of all, the data for AstraZeneca is still coming in. In the UK, it is more commonly used, and in other parts of Europe as well. And as more information comes in, the effectiveness of that vaccine against the various variants will increase probably. Right? So they shouldn't feel upset by that at all. Also, it's entirely possible that if you got 2 doses of AstraZeneca, you may be eligible for a third mRNA booster later in the year, especially one that's calibrated for the new variants that might be rolling about. And maybe we all will get that third booster. So no one's going to be left out ultimately. But
are we done with are we done with the AstraZeneca now, do you think, in terms of being rolled out in Canada now that they've made the switch?
Yeah, I think so. Mostly because we have so much mRNA vaccine now and much more coming. Even with the new data around Novavax, which is extraordinarily good, I don't anticipate that that's going to be one used in any great extent in Canada because mRNA works great, everyone's happy with it, and we're getting lots of it. Frankly, AstraZeneca and the other viral vector vaccines should be saved for the rest of the world where distribution is a challenge with mRNA vaccines. Right? So this is how the rest of the world gets out of this hole.
Yeah. Those folks who've had AstraZeneca and then either one of the mRNA number 2, is there any advantage over others because you're mixing and matching?
It's a good question. I think there is. Now, the data can be interpreted in many ways. At the very least, there's no disadvantage. Some suggest that there may be an increased antibody response that's observed, in the labs, not necessarily in people yet, but it's strongly encouraging. So you may get some kind of super immunity. Right? So in many ways, those who mix and match are better off than those of us who got mRNA for both doses. And again, there might be a third booster down the road, in which case you get even better reaction. The only downside is people who have a mix and match tend to have more reactogenicity, which means that more side effects, short-term side effects like some pain and fever. And for some people, that's a big deal. I would say that's a small deal compared to the advantage and protection you get.
I had my second. First was AstraZeneca, and then 2 days ago I had Pfizer.
You have mutant powers now. Fantastic.
Well, I do. And you know what? Other than sleeping 10 hours last night, I didn't have any side effects, Doc.
Yeah, again, not everyone's going to get, the majority of people will not get side effects. It's just that minority who do is greater than the minority who do with the same approach.
The bottom line here, folks, is if you get up there, because when I was on the Quebec side, this was before the NACI, just before the NACI recommendation, and they offered me a choice. They said, do you want a second AstraZeneca or a Pfizer? I did my homework. I spoke to Dr. Ray in the past, and I felt confident, right? And I knew that, knowing what I know, that I now have the superpower, as you describe it so well. So they won't even be offered a second AstraZeneca, is safe to say now.
I would be surprised if they start doing that, yeah. And people are also asking about, is Pfizer the same as Moderna? Well, they're not identical vaccines, but they're interchangeable enough so that you should not take the one that's offered first in this case. The only downside is Moderna has a slightly higher side effect profile. Slightly higher, maybe not even noticeable for most people. But
Bill Carroll had Moderna as his second shot, and he was down and out for a while, and I got the Pfizer. Maybe there's your case studies right there.
Yeah, or maybe you're just a more resilient, robust individual.
Well, and is my robust ability, I don't know if that's even a word, but does that mean I'm not as protected? Because I hear when your immune system struggles to get it, it actually means you're better protected.
No, it doesn't mean that. If you get a reaction like that, that is clear indication that you're producing some kind of antibodies, you have an inflammation response, but the opposite is not true. If you don't get a reaction, it doesn't mean you're not producing antibodies. That's confusing, but that's the way it works. The reactions are due to inflammation, that's all.
How soon before I'm fully protected?
Well, the textbook is always 2 weeks, but the clinical trial suggests anywhere from like 5 to 7 days, frankly.
Hmm.
But there's some variation here. Everyone's a bit different, but on average, between 7 and 2 weeks, 7 days and 2 weeks.
And how long does it last? Do we know?
Oh, we do not know. But so far, from the data collected so far, at least 6 months. I would be surprised if it's less than a year.
Hence the booster, right? We may.
Well, the booster is going to be needed if we, in fact, we do need a booster. That's unclear. It'll be needed because of new circulating variants. Now, the mRNA is fantastic. The fact that we're getting up to 90% protection against the Delta variant after 2 doses tells us about, again, the robustness and the wide-ranging immunity effects of the mRNA vaccines. But some will arise in the next few months in these high transmission areas like India that are a bit more resistant to our vaccines. Not entirely, but a bit more. And when that happens, it may be the responsible thing to do to roll out a booster that contains all of the appropriate proteins to protect us from all the variants that are circulating.
We have 9 new cases, according to the Ontario Ministry of Health today in the city of Ottawa. What does that tell you?
That's a small number. That's great. It's coming down. But the wastewater analysis is showing an increase a little bit. Now, that is not entirely unexpected. As things open up, there's going to be increased transmission. But I'm not celebrating yet. I'm going to wait to see how long these numbers stay down. And we're looking at, the rate of the Delta variant increase versus everybody else. Across Ontario, those Delta cases that we know about are actually exponentially growing, whereas the overall R factor for the province is below 1. So it's a race of Delta versus vaccination. That's what we're doing now.
The fact that it is so low, though, and yet the wastewater is up, could it be we're shedding but not spreading?
It's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, some theories I've heard is that a handful of very sick people are pooping a lot of virus into our water system.
Yeah.
It may be something to do with vaccination. I don't know. I don't want to put that out there too much, but maybe there's something about the vaccination signal. I really shouldn't have said that because I don't know for sure. That's not my field of expertise. But I would say it's okay to be a little concerned about that signal, but I'm not panicking about it because it could be a number of things.
Well, I'm wondering if people are, being exposed, but because they're vaccinated, they're not showing any symptoms, and therefore they're shedding it. But they don't.
That's an interesting perspective.
Therefore, the vaccination rollout is working.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective I hadn't thought of, and that actually sounds quite rational to me.
Yeah, and I think we're going to expect that, right? As the numbers go down and the wastewater goes up and we're more vaccinated, it's actually not bad because it means it's all working.
Yes. Yeah, it is it's going to be an interesting challenge disentangling asymptomatic cases from genuine non-infected cases. The biggest question is, do the vaccines prevent transmission? They do to a large extent, but not perfectly. So you're right, we're going to have some asymptomatic cases running about that are going to be just fine.
And hospitalizations are going to be next to nil, hopefully.
That'll take some time. Now, as we saw in the news, in Toronto, they're celebrating 0 COVID cases in a hospital. That's not really true. It's 0 infectious cases. There are a lot of people with post-COVID symptoms still in the ICUs recovering. Right. So the beds will be occupied for some time because this disease has a long footprint. That's a mix of metaphors there. It has a long tail, a wide footprint. And so we're going to be dealing with this at the health system for a while.
We mix our vaccines, you can mix your metaphors. We'll give you a pass on that one. Me, not so much. I don't have the DR before my name. Dr. Raywat Deonandan, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Epidemiologist.